Hello there, everybody. Michael Chamberlain and Jacob Reinheimer here in the Dan Patch studio at Harrah's Hoosier Park as we continue on the road to the Derby. The Road to the Derby Challenge making two stops this week, and the one we need to discuss here is Hot Springs, Arkansas for the Arkansas Derby. Grade 1, the purse $1.5 million.
Yeah, going to be a huge race and a big-time showdown, I think, that's kind of shaping up. We've got two heavy favorites on the morning line, Timberlake from the 2-hole and then Muth from the 7-hole. Bob Baffert versus Brad Cox. Big showdown there in a lot of ways, so really looking forward to this Arkansas Derby.
Well, I guess for Muth, this is more like the Road to the Preakness because Baffert's horses are still not eligible to be in the Derby first Saturday in May, but certainly is eligible to be at Pimlico 2 weeks after that. He did that last year with National Treasure. Let's not forget that. So as we take a look at this field of 10, Muth is the 8-5 morning line favorite in here from the number 7 post position. Timberlake is second choice at 9-5, and the third choice, number 9, Mystic Dan at 5-2 for Kenny McPeek with Brian Hernandez Jr. In the saddle. So a field of 10, they're going 1 1/8 miles, which is now the distance that these races are getting to get, because the Florida race was that. And remember, let's not forget last week, the Louisiana race was 1 3/16 miles, the distance of the Preakness. So that was also a race that showed us that maybe a little bit of extra ground certainly helped catching Freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. He was roaring late. And yeah, we're getting closer to that 1.25 mile distance, just kind of tuning our way up to that. And that's always a question mark for a lot of these horses. You know, a lot of them are bred to go the distance, but until they actually do it, it's just kind of an unknown quantity, right? So it's always interesting to see as we continue to add that distance on the road to the Derby.
And as we said, we kind of a two-horse race here as we take a look at the picks for the Arkansas Derby. Those are the two we have. We just have them in flip-flop order. I like Timberlake, Flavian Pratt for Brad Cox. Buy into Mischief out of a Looking at Lucky mare, Looking at Lucky, a Preakness winner back in the day, and won the Grade 2 Rebel. Well, I thought was the most visually impressive prep winner that we have seen thus far up until last week, because Endlessly won kind of nicely, but he's not going into the Derby. They've already announced that. But as far as the horses that we think will be in the gate for the Run for the Roses, I think Timberlake, maybe the most visually impressive win in the Rebel, had also won the Champagne last October. Finished fourth in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile behind Muth in that race, who finished second. But I think Timberlake, kind of flipped the switch in that last race, and I like him a little bit more than Muth in here.
Yeah, and I certainly can't argue that point. It was a visually impressive win. I don't think you can go wrong either way in the spot. I did opt to go Muth on top. You mentioned, not necessarily pointed towards the Derby. I think that changes things a little bit here for Muth. Coming out of the San Vicente, where he was really just racing against a couple of his stablemates. Looked like a morning jog there for Muth. Won it convincingly. Finished second to the likes of Fierceness in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. He raced well, went off at 2-1. Fierceness was just, no one was going to beat Fierceness last year in that spot. He was much the best on that day, but was a dominant winner, 3-back as well in the American Pharoah. He's gone the 1 1/16 miles, so I don't think going 1 1/8 miles is a big ask for Muth. And like I said, he's not being pointed towards the Derby. This might be the road to the Preakness for the likes of Muth. I think Bob Baffert's going to be looking to prove a point this weekend, so for that reason, I have to put Muth on top.
And, one thing you mentioned there was something that is just kind of biting these California prep races over the last few years. A lot of these horses are Baffert horses, be it in the Tim Yachtine barn or whatever, and and they're racing against each other and beating each other. And then when it gets to a Derby day, with the exception of maybe Medina Spirit, who won the Derby but then didn't win the Derby, I just wonder how much real hard competition they've had against 5- and 6-horse fields out there.
Well, it's part of the reason, the Road to the Derby contest, we used to include a handful of those races from Santa Anita. The fields were getting so small and they're so dominated by favorites, we opted to go elsewhere for some of those races. We still include the Santa Anita Derby because that's really the big prep out west. With that said, that's just something that we've kind of gone away from just with this contest because of not necessarily a lack of competition, but it's certainly different competition than at the Florida or these Arkansas races.
After the top two, I've gone to the 9, Mystic Dan, in third. The winner of the Grade 3 Southwest won that race nicely by 8 lengths at odds of 11-1 on a muddy track on February 3rd by Golden Sense out of a Colonel John Mayer. So this horse, I think, maybe the distance of the Derby isn't going to quite be in the wheelhouse here at 1.25 miles. Now, granted, went the mile and a 16th nicely, but Golden Sense, he was a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner on a couple of occasions, and yes, he did run in the Derby and he did set the pace in the Derby, but when push came to shove at the end, he wasn't there. I do think that Mystic Dan, certainly with the win over the track, a very impressive win nonetheless, I think that Mystic Dan is a solid third choice.
Yeah, I put Mystic Dan fourth on my ticket. Going third to number 5, Liberal Arts from the Robert Medina barn. This one was third in that Southwest behind the likes of Mystic Dan after getting away well towards the back. Had pace at the end of the race, rather. Just had way too much work to do on the likes of Mystic Dan. Mystic Dan got away from him. With that said, was a winner back on October 23rd of last year in the Grade 3 Street Sense. Won it by 2 lengths. Was a very impressive winner from off the pace. He is a horse that needs a little bit of pace in front of him. He's not one who's necessarily going to push things early. I think Tyler Gaffalione, if he can just kind of stalk maybe the likes of Timberlake Muth, I think he can get a piece. I don't know if he's necessarily a threat to win at 15-1 on the morning line, but I do like the price underneath.
My fourth pick is the 4 Time for Truth. 20-1 in the morning line. Rafael Bejarano riding for trainer Ron Moquette by Omaha Beach out of a Looking at Lucky Mare. 3 races over the track at Oaklawn Park. Was a winner on New Year's Eve and then followed that up with a second in the Ozark on February 10th on a muddy track and then extended out into 1 mile and a 16th in distance and won as the betting favorite on March 2nd. So 2 wins and a second in 3 races over the track. Getting good value here at 20-1, and I liked Omaha Beach when he was on the track, and I'm kind of glad to see his progeny now coming to the fore, and I think this horse at that value certainly could be included underneath.
Yeah, I think you just have to search for something underneath those top 2, right? I think they kind of tower above everyone in this field, so you're just looking for something to throw underneath. I think Time to Truth at 20-1, I think he's well worth a look there.
So as we take a look at the picks one more time, Jacob going 7-2-5-9. I have a 2-7-9-4 for the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby coming up on Saturday, part of the Road to the Derby Challenge. And, of course, we are now live racing here at Harrah's Hoosier Park, so we invite you to come out on Friday and Saturday of this week. And next week, we're going to go to our 4-day-a-week schedule, so we'll have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday contests every night, and we'll be doing some great things with our live racing schedule.
Yeah, business is about to pick up for us. We're getting ready to go to that 4-day-a-week schedule. Then a little bit later in the summer, we're going to go to 5 days, that Tuesday through Saturday. I believe that last week of June is when we start that 5-day-a-week schedule. So enjoying this weekend now because we got to get to work starting next week.
That's right. And of course, next week we got three Road to the Derby Challenge races next week, including that Santa Anita Derby we were talking about. So we will certainly be putting the nose to the grindstone, speaking of a Derby winner, taking a look at some of these races coming up here next week as well. So that is our look at the Arkansas Derby. For Jacob Reinheimer, I'm Michael Chamberlain, wishing the best of luck to you all.